Chapter 701. The guard who brought in Yaoan said happily, "Thank you, Master Aguagua, for bringing us so many things. Thank you, God, for giving her to Mata country. Master Inyao, you are so lucky to be Master Aguagua's only spouse." Inyao's expression did not change, but he was surprised. Did Aguagua bring all these things to Mata country? Master Aguagua is indeed the smartest person in the orc world, just like what the king said. Inyao observed carefully. Many orcs around him were smiling. Every time someone asked about the new things they had, they would proudly say that it was made by Master Aguagua. Master Aguagua was the smartest person in Mata country. She did not look like a wise person. She was like a god. Inyao passed by those streets. On the way to the palace, he was smiling. His Aguagua was really amazing. Master Aguagua lives here. This is her exclusive palace. Without her permission, no one is allowed to enter. The guard was a little envious. But Master Aguagua said that Master Inyao can enter and leave at will without her permission. Those envious gazes made Inyao feel proud. He even enjoyed the envious gazes because of Aguagua. He bid farewell to the guard and pushed the door in. When he pushed the door open, he was surprised. The door was made of wood, and there were exquisite carvings on it. He had never seen it before, but it was very beautiful. He walked in nervously and excitedly. At first glance, he saw Tangwa staring at some strange utensils. He quickened his steps and shouted, "Aguagua, I'm back." Then, he quickly walked to her side and hugged her small body. He kissed her cheeks without a care in the world. Finally, he pressed his forehead against hers and looked at her little face up close seriously. Her face was rosy, and she looked even more beautiful. She did not suffer. Inyao was relieved. Tangwa also hugged his neck and kissed him on the cheek. She smiled and said, "High Priest, it's been more than half a year. You only came back now." "I'm sorry, Aguagua. I came back late. That's why you were bullied." Then, "High Priest, you have to avenge me." Inyao nodded. "Yes, I should take revenge for Guagua. I was too anxious just now. I just wanted to find you as soon as possible and forgot to take revenge for you." "Aguagua, how do you want to take revenge on them? Are you hungry?" Tangwa touched Inyao's cheek and tugged. "You've lost a lot of weight. You don't look as good as before. You'll gain weight very soon." Inyao was a little worried. If he did not look good, would Aguagua despise him? Tangwa pushed him. "Put me down first. I'll get someone to get you something to eat. Anyway, eat your fill first." Inyao was very obedient. When he returned to the Lajuo tribe and heard that Aguagua had been handed over to Matagua, his heart felt empty. When he saw her again, that empty space was filled. Aguagua was already a part of his heart. He couldn't do without her. He hugged her and did not let go. He rubbed his chin against her cheek and changed his position. He sat on the stone bench and hugged her in his arms. Aguagua doesn't have to do anything. It should be fine like this. Tangwa pursed her lips and smiled. "All right, I'll do as you say, High Priest. Inyao Aguagua, call me by my name. I'm no longer the High Priest." Chapter 702. Tangwa whispered in his ear, "From today onwards, you are still the High Priest of the entire Mata country. But I would like to call you by your name, Ayao." Inyao showed his most beautiful smile and kissed the corner of her lips. He was very satisfied. He held her small waist with his big hands and didn't want to let go. He had never held her like this before. Today, he couldn't let go of her. He only felt at ease when he hugged her in his arms. Tangwa quickly ordered people to prepare a lot of delicious food and bring it up. Inyao looked at the food that he had never seen before in surprise. He looked at the utensils that were used to store the food. They were much better than the stone tools they used before. They looked more exquisite. These utensils were all made by burning. If Ayao is interested, you can go and take a look. King Shili is a very generous orc. He wouldn't mind if you go and take a look." Tangwa said as she picked up food for Inyao. The females who were serving the food trembled. What king was the most generous person? Master Aguagua was the most generous one. Weren't you the one who brought out these things? Although they were muttering in their hearts, they didn't want to disturb them at this time. They left after serving the food. Yin Yao ate the delicacies that he had never tasted before and held the most beautiful female in his arms. He was very satisfied. Hearing that these were all brought to the orcs of Mata country by Agwagwa, he was very shocked and proud of it. Agwagwa was really amazing. That was his first thought. Agwagwa was his spouse. That was his second thought. After eating, Tangwa brought Yin Yao to various places in Mata country. No one dared to stop her from entering any place that she wanted to, except for the place where Sheely and Queen Sheely slept. Even at that place, she could enter at any time as long as someone informed her. It was just that she wasn't interested in that. Yin Yao had really witnessed Tangwa's wisdom. He didn't refuse to become the high priest of Mata country. He was also called the state preceptor. The orcs in the Mata kingdom cheered. Lady Agwagwa was a wise woman, and her spouse was the grand tutor. Their Mata kingdom was getting better and better. They felt that there were more people in the Mata kingdom. Perhaps next year, they could apply to King Siri for permission to occupy other territories. Those old animal skins that Tangwa made back then contained some methods to treat illnesses that she personally wrote on them. It could be said that as long as Yin Yao understood what was written on them, it would be enough for him to deal with the injuries and illnesses of the beastmen world. Obviously, Yin Yao would not disappoint him. However, Yin Yao brought back another piece of news this time. This time, I followed them a little too deeply. That's why I came back so late. At night, the two of them sat on the roof and looked at the twinkling stars in the sky, holding each other's hands. I saw with my own eyes those beasts rushed into a place like a barrier and disappeared. Barrier Tangwa pursed her lips. A barrier that could be seen with the naked eye and allowed wild beasts to pass through could only be one thing. Enchantment. She had already confirmed that there was no mysterious power in the beastmen world. So why was there still a barrier? What she wanted to know now was whether the enchantment was a natural enchantment or man-made. If it was natural, then it was fine. If it was man-made, then there would be a big problem. I didn't go in. Yin Yao hugged Tangwa. It was very pure, without any emotions, only the purest of love. He kissed her forehead. Chapter 703. I'm afraid that I won't be able to come out if I go in, and I'll never see Guagua again. You're right. You can't go to a place that's too dangerous, and you're not sure if you can come out alive. But that place, she had to go and take a look. She wasn't afraid of the unknown, and she didn't like the unknown. Do you still remember the location of that place? Yin Yao nodded and took out a piece of animal skin. I drew a map. As long as the location of that place doesn't change, you can reach it by following the route on the map. But it'll take more than half a year to go back and forth. Tangwa looked at the map. Although it was far away, she still wanted to go and take a look. She wasn't worried about Matagwa at all. She had handed over what she needed to Sheely. With Sheely's wisdom, Matagwa would definitely get better and better. Even without her, there wouldn't be any problems. But before she left, she had to draw up a plan for Sheely. It was what she had to do in the next half a year. Sheely wasn't that passionate about expanding his territory. If it wasn't for her urging, the expansion of his territory would be slower and slower. How could that be possible? Tangwa held her chin and squinted her eyes. She looked cute and playful, which made Yin Yao laugh. He grabbed her hand and flicked her forehead. What are you thinking about, Guagua? Let's go to that place and take a look. We can go in together. That way, we won't have to worry about being separated. Yin Yao naturally agreed. It would be a pity if they couldn't figure out what was going on with the beast tide. But before we leave, let's draw up a development plan for Matagwa for Sheely so that he won't slack off. Then, Tangwa gave a long speech about how Matagwa should rule all the orcs. In the end, Yin Yao couldn't help but ask, why does Guagua like to expand her territory so much? She didn't seem to be an orc that liked to rule. Of course, it's to prepare a big move for revenge. Because she had traveled through countless worlds. She tried to make every world more exciting. She didn't want to just travel through it numbly. In this world, there were people in the Lado tribe who betrayed her and hurt her. But there were also people like Ali and people like Yin Yao. Naturally, she wanted to live a more interesting life. Revenge? With Mata's current strength, they can do whatever they want to the Lado tribe. Tangwa raised her eyebrows and raised her chin. That would be letting them off too easily. Is killing them and stealing their food considered revenge? Yin Yao caressed her cheek. Then Agwagwa, tell me, how should I take revenge so that I'll feel better? He would help her with whatever she wanted to do. Of course, we'll take over all the places in the Beastmen world and leave them with only a large forest. They'll have nowhere to go and can only hole up in there. Every year, they'll have to worry about the beast tide. Tangwa raised her voice. Other than that big forest, the rest of the world is my territory. I want the warriors of Mata to build high walls so that they can't come in even if they want to. Even though Inyao had thought a lot, he really didn't expect Agwagwa's thoughts to be so powerful. He admitted that he was inferior to her in terms of ambition. So, in order to leave the Rado tribe with nowhere to go, she wanted to take over all the places? System. Yes, this is the host's revenge. The original recipe, the original taste, has never changed. He was also very impressed. Chapter 704. After Inyao confirmed that Tangwa was serious, he started to make plans with her. He watched as she arranged everything in an orderly manner, as well as the items she brought to Matagwa. The most important thing was the production of ironware. He no longer doubted that Tangwa could unify the entire orc world. Agwagwa had the ability to do so. As for the members of the Lajuo tribe, he had no pity for them. They looked at him as if it was natural for Agwagwa to go to Matagwa. When they said that Ning Luo was more important to the Lajuo tribe than Agwagwa, he had already given up on the Lajuo tribe that he had protected for many years. He didn't care about what they would encounter in the future or what would happen to them. Now, he only wanted to be with Agwagwa, the only one he cared about, to realize her ambition, to unify the orc world as soon as possible, and to take revenge on those who had bullied her. He would help her. A serious Yao was undoubtedly very powerful. He had a very smart brain and could infer many things from one example. As long as Tangwa suggested something, he would quickly understand it. He would also come up with more effective methods according to the special situation. It took them more than 2 months to come up with these plans. Tangwa also gave Shili some new things, as well as half a year's worth of tasks. Shili accepted it painfully and happily. When he heard that Tangwa and Inyao needed to go out for half a year, he was shocked and very unwilling. These two were precious. Nothing could happen to them. A Yao has found the source of the beast tide. I suspect that there is a conspiracy there. I'm afraid that it will threaten the safety of Matagwa in the future, so I need to go and take a look. Hearing this, Shili knew that he couldn't stop them. He was a very straightforward person and directly sent 100 of his strongest warriors to follow Tangwa and Inyao. This time, Tangwa didn't refuse. It was good to have people to serve her, so that Inyao wouldn't be tired. After all, Inyao would definitely take on everything along the way. Just like this, Tangwa and Inyao set off, heading towards the place with the mysterious enchantment. Shili was very reluctant. He would rather have Tangwa urge him to expand his territory every day. However, the secret of the beast tide could very well threaten the safety of Mata country. He had no choice but to do so. This time, he opened the plan given to him by Tangwa. After she left, he followed the plan step by step. The members of the Lado tribe, other than the little ones who could not transform into human form, had a total of more than 100 people, close to 200. After countless days of traveling, they finally found a place with beautiful scenery. This place seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world. They believed that Matagwa would not be able to find this place. There were no other tribes here, so they settled down peacefully. With Ning Luo's various little tricks, they had a very smooth start. However, as time passed, it was inevitable that there would be friction in life. The 5 strong men couldn't bear to see Ning Luo suffer a loss. Ning Luo was the best, regardless of whether it was useful or not. Later on, Ning Luo had children. The first children were Vigos, then Gains, and then Mingjias. Heilang and Aimo couldn't sit still and had relationships with Ning Luo. Later on, they also had children. Ai couldn't get Gains, so she gave up. She found a decent warrior in the tribe to be her partner, and they also had children. The story started with this child. Ai's child and Ning Luo's child had a conflict. In the end, Ning Luo's child was stronger and pushed Ai's child into the water to drown. Chapter 705. After Ning Luo's child pushed Ai's child into the water and drowned, the entire tribe was shocked. Ai only had this one child, and she usually doted on him a lot. This child was especially smart, and she was counting on this child to be better than Ning Luo's children. She didn't expect him to drown before he reached the age of turning into a human. Ai's conflict with Ning Luo had been getting deeper and deeper. After this incident, she requested He Lang to uphold justice for her. No matter what, Ning Luo's child had to be punished, and Ning Luo had to apologize to her. He had to kneel down and apologize to her and compensate her with food. Her child was dead, so these requests weren't excessive at all. She knew that it was impossible for Ning Luo's child to pay with his life. The biggest punishment was for Ning Luo to kneel down and apologize to her. However, she didn't expect Ning Luo's spouses to look at her as though they wanted to eat her up. It was as though she wanted Ning Luo's life. Vigo spoke first. "We can compensate you with more food, but I don't think Luo Luo needs to kneel down and apologize to you. Luo Luo didn't do anything wrong. The child was mischievous and accidentally fell in. Luo Luo has no reason to kneel down and apologize to you," Gain said. "I don't agree with Luo Luo kneeling down and apologizing either. She didn't do anything wrong. Aie, don't go overboard." Aie looked at He Lang, hoping that he could uphold justice. However, He Lang said, "You can have as much food as you want. Luo Luo didn't do anything wrong. It's just that the children from both families were playing around and accidentally died." "Brother, what about you?" Aie was on the verge of breaking down. Her eyes were red as she looked at Aimo, her biological brother. She glanced at the little brat hiding behind Aimo. He looked just like Aimo. This was the child of Ning Luo and her biological brother, Aimo, who had pushed her brat into the water and drowned him. Looking at Aimo's silent expression, she understood. "Aie, the children were playful, so we'll compensate you with more food. It's going to be winter soon. Once winter is over, you'll have many children. Don't make things difficult for Luo Luo." "Aimo," Aie shouted. She broke down and said, "What would you do if it was your child who died?" Aimo didn't say anything. If it was his child, he would definitely kill the bastard in front of him. Seeing Aimo's fierce gaze, he hurriedly hugged the tiger cub in an attempt to comfort him. He wouldn't let Aie hurt his and Luolua's child. Luolua's child. Luo. Luo. That tiger cub was usually more mischievous. If Ning Luo had cared more and not been so indulgent, such a thing would not have happened. S.A. Chapter 706. When Aie saw this scene, she couldn't help but recall the scene many years ago when Olga blamed them and Yinyao left. At this moment, she finally understood how sad Olga and Yinyao felt when they left. Unfortunately, she had once been a participant, one of them. Could this be retribution? What else could Aie do in the face of all the tribe members' agreement? From a victim, she almost became the one who bullied Ning Luo. She got a lot of food. She also got the animal skins that she used to envy Ning Luo. But she lost her only child, and she didn't get the most sincere apology. In the next few days, the tribe members kept an eye on Aie, probably because they were warned by Ning Luo and the others. They were afraid that she would do something stupid. After about half a month, Aie didn't do anything. Instead, she was the same as before. Some people tried to joke with her that they would give birth to cubs tomorrow, and she actually smiled and said yes. One time, a tribe member went out to hunt. Aie smiled and found Ning Luo's cubs who were still playing. When no one was paying attention, she turned into her original form and grabbed little Huzi with her mouth and two more with her claws. Amidst the tribe members' screams, she rushed to the long river and jumped in without hesitation. The three cubs were pressed down by her and couldn't break free at all. When they died, she didn't resist and just sank into the water, letting herself be drowned. She couldn't deal with Ning Luo, so she could only be a beast. Who told her to not be fair? Later, Ning Luo and her spouse came back and found the three cubs and Aie's dead bodies. Ning Luo held a big knife in grief and chopped Aie's body into meat paste. She looked crazy and scary. The tribe members had never seen this side of Ning Luo, but her spouse thought that she should vent her anger. Those things happened a long time later. At this time, Tanghua and Yinyao had passed through countless forests. After a few months, They finally arrived at the place with the enchantment. Almost as soon as she saw the enchantment, Tanghua was sure that it was man-made. Aguagua, do you want to go there? Yin Yao saw through Tanghua's thoughts and asked, We have to go there. Yao, are you scared? Hearing this, Yin Yao smiled and held Tanghua's hand tightly. As long as Aguagua is by my side, I'm not afraid to go anywhere. He was not afraid of death, but he was afraid that he would not be able to see her again if he died. After all, he was only afraid of losing Aguagua. Let's go then. Tanghua ordered the other warriors to guard the place while Yin Yao held her hand. The two of them passed through the barrier together. The moment they passed through the barrier, Tanghua felt a mysterious power rushing towards her. Although it was very small, it was indeed a mysterious power that existed between heaven and earth. Could it be that the barrier blocked the mysterious power? Tanghua communicated with the system. Why did you set up such a barrier? Host, I have scanned the area, and there are people appearing in the places that I can scan. Human. Yes, humans, wearing clothes. They weren't beast men, they were humans. They were humans who knew martial arts but couldn't cultivate the mysterious power. I've scanned their bodies, and there's no such mysterious power in them. Furthermore, I've discovered that the mysterious power between heaven and earth is gradually decreasing. Chapter 707. Tanghua originally wanted to communicate with the system, but she suddenly felt that something was wrong with Yin Yao. She felt that Yin Yao's body was very hot. Yao. Aguagua, I'm fine. I just feel that a mysterious power is awakening in my body. Other than my body being a little hot, I feel very comfortable. Yin Yao's tone was very relaxed. Tanghua believed him. She felt that mysterious power appeared in Yin Yao's body. Could it be that the mysterious power between heaven and earth only existed for the beastmen? If that was the case, she might have some understanding of the existence of the barrier. Humans could not cultivate this mysterious power, but the beastmen could. The beastmen themselves were very strong, and they could cultivate this mysterious power. This was a huge threat to humans. There were many humans, and they were smart. It was easy for them to plot against the beastmen who were few in number. Now, they had to confirm whether the beastmen were driven into the barrier, or those people pulled the mysterious power out of the beastmen's place. Tanghua brought Yin Yao to a secret place. Yin Yao did not resist. He felt that the mysterious power in his body would bring him endless benefits. He sat quietly at the side and felt this power. Tanghua and the system carefully observed his body. They realized that the mysterious power was reshaping Yin Yao's meridians. Yin Yao's meridians were becoming more and more perfect, and his aura was also becoming stronger. Dear host, Yin Yao's aura is already stronger than the person I scanned earlier. This growth speed is really terrifying. It's not surprising that the beastmen would be driven to that place. Tanghua also thought so. The beastmen were still more simple-minded than humans. Humans were too cunning. They would be easily tricked by a little conspiracy. Moreover, the annual beast tide was probably calculated by the people here. It was to completely exterminate the beastmen. They did not dare to pass through the barrier at all. They were afraid that the beastmen would find their traces. One day, they would find this barrier that could only isolate the mysterious power. By then, the beastmen would instantly increase their strength like Yin Yao. At that time, even if the beastmen were few in number, humans would not be able to defeat them. Of course, she was not interested in this at all. She was also not interested in saving the beastmen. However, she was still more interested in increasing the strength of the orcs. As for the hatred between the orcs and humans, they would settle it themselves after she left this world. About half a day later, the redness on Yin Yao's face faded, and he returned to normal. He felt the strength in his body. He punched the stone wall and easily punched a hole in it. He was stunned for a moment. Clearly, he was surprised by his own strength. With his current strength, there was no need for him to be afraid of the beast horde. He dared to say that he could easily deal with 100 of them. Aguagua, I want to find out the truth. Yin Yao was still brooding over the beast tide. He would not be satisfied if he did not find out the cause and effect. He also wanted to know if his father was still alive. Tanghua smiled at him. Let's go then, but we need to observe our surroundings. Yin Yao thought it was reasonable. Tangwa purposely led Yin Yao to a place with people. The two of them quietly hid at the side and observed those people. They are different from us beast men, very weak. Tangwa almost spat out. Facing the current Yin Yao, the other party was indeed weak. Chapter 708. The clothes they're wearing are a bit like what Ning Luo was wearing. Yin Yao narrowed his eyes. Could it be that Ning Luo came from here? But it doesn't seem like it. If Ning Luo came from here, he should have come back. Yao, let's take their clothes and put them on later. Then no one will suspect us if we blend in. Yin Yao smiled. He held Tangwa's face and kissed it. Agua is really smart. I just thought of this. Orcs didn't transform into their original forms. They looked similar to humans, at most a little stronger. But with Tangwa's current slender and fair appearance, no one would think that they were orcs if they put on human clothes. Yin Yao was the same. He looked different from ordinary orcs. He looked slender and not burly. If he put on a human robe, he would definitely look tall and handsome. The two waited for an opportunity. Yin Yao went to take the clothes and put them on. Then they blended into the crowd. Basically, no one would suspect that they were orcs. Moreover, many people would look at Tangwa, this beautiful little girl, which made Yin Yao feel very uncomfortable. In the end, he had to hold her hand and walk away. Only then did the others stop looking at them. This time, they stayed in the human world for almost 3 years. Yin Yao was already very smart. With Tangwa, this old fox, inadvertently guiding him, he quickly figured out the situation of the human world. After figuring it out, Yin Yao didn't plan to go back immediately. Instead, he began to learn various human skills. If he didn't know how to do it, he would write it down on paper. He also planned to bring some paper and pen back when he went back. He would use them to record some things. They also figured out the problem of the enchantment. This wasn't a secret in the human world. This was something that happened many years ago. At that time, orcs and humans existed in the same place. Orcs were powerful, but they weren't as smart as humans. The two were evenly matched. They each had their own world and lived in peace. But there was no lack of greedy humans. They wanted to rule the orcs and make them their slaves. They came up with all kinds of strange ways. In the end, they angered the orcs. The orcs finally decided to attack the humans. That time, the humans suffered heavy losses and the orcs won. The orcs were indeed not qualified to rule. Under the calculations of the humans, there were all kinds of internal conflicts. Then, a half-orc appeared. He was biased towards the humans. He had ambitions, but he didn't want to rule these barbaric orcs. He decided to drive them to the wasteland and let them fend for themselves. He knew the orcs' weakness. Without the mysterious power of heaven and earth, the orcs couldn't use their strength. After many years of research, he created a barrier that could isolate the mysterious power. He planned to drive the beastmen to the wasteland, but he was afraid that the beastmen would come back, so he arranged a beast tide every year, causing the beastmen to die every year. Of course, he hoped that the beastmen would be wiped out, but with the situation at that time, it was impossible. The first generation of beastmen was still very powerful, and he could only slowly weaken their bloodline. Every time they fled, they would lose a piece of history. And because of that genius half-orc, the beast tide still existed today. These beasts weren't real beasts. They were beasts that were reared by every family in the human world. When the time came, they would feed them a kind of herb. After eating it, they could find the orcs by following the smell. Chapter 709. The herbs would only last for about half a month before they would return the way they came from. On the 10th day of familiarizing themselves with the place, Tangwa and Yin Yao brought the 100 warriors in as well. They had them change into human clothes and gave them a series of instructions before bringing them to a secret place to awaken their powers. After Tangwa's research, the mysterious power between heaven and earth could only communicate with the power in the beastman's bloodline. When the beastman's bloodline awakened, the talent in their bloodline would be their power. If they were talented, they would be powerful. If they were not talented, they would not be powerful. Yin Yao belonged to the category of those who were especially talented. The 100 warriors they brought with them were all carefully selected by Shi Li naturally. They were talented. Almost immediately after entering the barrier, they felt the awakening of their powers. That beast-man genius had already died many years ago. As for why this mysterious power disappeared, Tanghua was not interested to know. She only knew that it would be easier to develop Mata Kingdom and unify the Beastmen world now. In order to prevent this place from being discovered by Ning Luo's spouses, after the 100 warriors awakened their powers, she sent a portion of them back to tell King Shili about this place. She asked King Shili to send warriors to conquer all the countries and tribes around the barrier. Then, she sent warriors to guard the barrier. As for the annual Beast Tide, it was not enough to deal with the beastmen who had awakened their powers. Then are we just going to let those beasts rush in? This was King Shili's reply. The beasts had taken the medicine and became crazy. They would definitely destroy the houses they built and bring trouble to them. For this, Tanghua also sent a letter back to King Shili. The letter said, "Let a portion of them in. They would not dare to attack the beastmen who had awakened their powers. However, they would still attack the beastmen who had not awakened their powers. King Shili should think about sending more beastmen to awaken their powers and strengthen Mata Kingdom. As for the other portion of the beasts, King Shili is really worrying too much. The warrior's appetite is not small. Don't you think that we can save a lot of money by sending food every year?" Inyao saw what Tanghua wrote with his own eyes. He couldn't help but praise her happily. Agua is really smart. Aren't wild beasts meant to be eaten? After King Siri received the letter and read it, he slapped his thigh and shouted, "There really isn't any problem that can't be solved with food. Lady Guagua is indeed very resourceful. My Mata Kingdom's warriors don't have to worry about meat anymore." After dealing with all these, it was time for Tanghua and Inyao to lead dozens of warriors to study in the crowd for more than 3 years. They had to learn everything that humans knew. Even if they didn't know anything, they had to get their hands on it and study it slowly. Unbeknownst to the humans, there was a group of beastmen who knew what they knew. No, it should be said that this group of beastmen recovered their past history. Tanghua didn't care about these things, but the development of the beastmen was her goal. Don't forget, she had a big move to take revenge. Every time Inyao thought of this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If one day someone asked his Agwogwo why she wanted to help Cyril unify the Orc Kingdom, his Agwogwo would definitely say that it was revenge. Others would then ask, how strong was Agwogwo's enemy? In the end, they would find out that it was a tribe hiding in the deep forest. Who knew how many people would laugh to death? Chapter 710. The Orc Warriors by Tanghua and Inyao's side would be replaced every month. Now, King Siri had already occupied the area around the barrier. Outside the barrier, he had even built a tall city wall. They would close the city gates until the beast tide arrived. When the beast tide arrived, they would let some of the beasts out. The other beasts would fall into the traps they had set in advance. They would not touch the beasts that returned, in case the humans found out something was wrong and stopped feeding them. These were all suggested by Tanghua. The orcs who heard it were all speechless. They swore in their hearts that they could offend anyone but Agwagwa. She was really too vengeful. Her way of revenge was really to poke people's hearts. The more they cried out in pain, the happier she would be. Mata Kingdom's territory was still expanding. Because of the new things brought by the humans, Mata Kingdom's development was very fast. Those small countries and tribes could not resist Mata Kingdom's attack at all. They only needed to show their sharp weapons to occupy a small tribe. They only needed a day to occupy a small country. Wherever Mata Kingdom went, that was their territory. After 5 years, Mata Kingdom had unified the orc world. Only a few small tribes were left hiding in the forest. Ning Luo and her spouses were hiding in a deep place, living a life isolated from the world. They were also afraid that Mata Kingdom would take revenge on them, so they never planned to go out. So, they did not know about the changes in the outside world. They also did not know that Mata Kingdom had already started to divide the forest. The place they were hiding in would be discovered by Mata Kingdom sooner or later. Lady Agwagwa, the king said that there should be only one big forest left. There were no traces of them in the other forests. They are very likely hiding in that big forest. The king said that he was afraid of disturbing them, so he did not let anyone in. Instead, he asked me to talk to you first. Tanghua had lived in the human world for 5 years. She preferred to live in the human world. Yao also wanted to find his father, so he had been in the human world all this time. In actuality, the Mata Beastman Kingdom cities were almost the same as those in the human world. Moreover, the Beastmen had great power, and their buildings were even more perfect and sturdy than those in the human world. Nowadays, the Beastmen in Mata were very excited when they heard about the annual Beast Wave. During those few days, they would be able to eat meat every day. They wouldn't have to worry about not having enough to eat. Tell the king to build a high wall around the forest. Also, make it clear that it belongs to the Mata Kingdom. Without permission, it doesn't belong to the Mata Kingdom. No one is allowed to enter. At this point, she narrowed her eyes and smiled. I think that the orcs of Mata should create an identity card that belongs to us, in case some small tribe members from deep in the mountains sneak in. If they are willing to join the Mata Kingdom, I will create an identity card for them. Except for the person from the forest, you can tell the king that. He will understand. After the messenger left, Tangwa laughed happily. Yao held her face helplessly. Are you that happy? That's right. We'll get our revenge soon. Tangwa looked at Yao with smiling eyes. Do you think I'm being unreasonable? Chapter 7:11. No, Yao quickly said, afraid that she would be sad. King Larry was very cruel in the past. If Agwagwa wasn't so smart, you would have been exposed long ago. He wouldn't have let you go. Those who went against his wishes and lied to him, no matter if they were male or female, would end up in a miserable state. So, Agwagwa, you didn't cause trouble for no reason. It was the members of the Lajuo tribe who were ungrateful. You weren't the one who brought the danger to the Lajuo tribe, but they wanted you to bear the pain that you shouldn't have. Whatever punishment they will bear in the future, that's what they should bear. If Ning Luo didn't have her spouse to protect her, the members of the Lajuo tribe might have wanted to hand her over. Tangwa couldn't help but laugh. Yao is very clear about this. No matter if it's humans or orcs, they all bully the weak and fear the strong. Bullying Ning Luo means offending the strong warriors and the tribe leader. At that time, Agwagwa was alone. Yao hugged Tangwa and asked, when are you going back to Mata, Agwagwa? Have you looked for your father? Yao shook his head. I'm not looking for him anymore. We've searched the entire human world for the past 5 years, but we couldn't find him. If he's still alive, he'll come back one day. If he's long gone, there's no point in looking for him anymore. The secret of the beast tide has been solved. The orcs are no longer afraid of the beast tide. The mysterious power of the human world is almost gone. The warriors of Mata have basically all awakened. As for what will happen in the future, I don't care. I just want to be with Agwagwa from now on. I only want you in my eyes and heart. I don't have time to care about anything else. Okay, Tangwa replied. This guy was really good at saying sweet nothings. She didn't get tired of it. It was quite comfortable to listen to. I want to go back to Mata too. Let's live outside that big forest. Let's ask Sheely to build a tall pavilion. We'll go to the pavilion to look at the scenery after dinner every day. Yao touched the back of her head and couldn't help but smile. As you wish. I'll do as you wish. How do you want to play? I'll accompany you to the end. Who asked her to already live in his heart. When Siri heard that Tangwa wanted a tall pavilion that could overlook the entire forest, he ordered the people of Mata Country to build a tall and beautiful pavilion. The warriors of Mata Country all volunteered themselves and expressed their willingness to build the tallest and most beautiful pavilion for Master Agwagwa. It was all thanks to Agwagwa that they could have such a wonderful life today. Live in a beautiful house, wear nice and comfortable clothes, and awaken great powers. When they heard that she only wanted a tall pavilion, they all thought that she was too selfless. They had to do everything in their power to build her the tallest, most beautiful, and most sturdy pavilion. The decision of the warriors was made very quickly. The construction began the next day. The pavilion was built on the edge of the city wall. They could see the entire forest at a glance. They had also specially measured the best location. The orcs should be very fast in building. Under normal circumstances, it could be built in 1 to 3 months. However, they spent a year to build this pavilion. Tangwa didn't rush them. When the pavilion was ready to be used, she looked at the pavilion in surprise. It was really tall. The patterns on the walls were also very beautiful. Every brick and tile was built with great care. It could be said that there was no flaw. Chapter 7:12. She liked it very much and was very grateful to them for a while. For this reason, she took out many good recipes and gave them to them. These beastmen did not have any other hobbies, but they loved to eat. When they were free, they would secretly go to the human world to learn how to cook. They even brought back the spices and seeds from there. After that, Tangwa moved into the pavilion. When she had nothing to do, she would sit on the pavilion and eat sunflower seeds and dried fruits while looking at the scenery in the distance. Actually, with the forest blocking her view, she could not see what was inside unless the people inside walked out. But she was quite happy just looking at it like that. In the blink of an eye, another 10 years had passed. The beastmen of Mata country were very curious. Was the forest really that beautiful? Why else would their Mata country's Lady Agwagwa like to sit on the tall pavilion after every meal and look into the distance with a smile on her face? This special hobby became an unsolved mystery in Mata country. The beast tide is coming again, right? One day, Tangwa sat on the pavilion and looked into the distance. They really don't plan to come out? The former King Larry's cruelty left a deep impression on people. But they don't have to hide for 16 years. They do. Yin Yao smiled and squatted beside Tangwa. He held her hand. Don't worry, they will come out eventually. I'm not worried. I'm worried for them. If they keep hiding inside, they will eat up the entire mountain. Then, they will realize that it's Mata country's territory outside. Where do you think they will go? Will they only be able to eat tree roots in the future? Once they finish eating the tree roots, they will only be able to eat soil. Lady Agwagwa, the beast tide is coming again. The warriors below shouted, "Do you want to go and eat meat this year?" They invited her warmly. The taste of their meat was getting better and better. Tangwa smiled and replied, "No, just eat well. Remember, don't eat up all the beasts. Bring some over." Understood, Lady Agwagwa. They did not understand why, but they did as Lady Agwagwa said. 2 days later, the beast tide finally came. Tangwa had been eating and drinking on the top floor of the pavilion recently. She looked at the forest without blinking and saw the beasts rushing in with her own eyes. She held her chin in anticipation. Would they come out this year? Agwagwa, you're so free. Olga walked up and shook her head. She swayed in front of Tangwa. Look at my new dress. Mick bought it for me. And the necklace and bracelet. Mick bought them for me. After saying that, she pulled the little girl behind her. Look at my little daughter. Isn't she dressed beautifully today? Tangwa glanced at the boy who was dressed up as a little girl and chuckled. Your son is going to be ruined by you. It's my daughter. My daughter. Olga said in annoyance. He gave birth to 5 sons. Whose family is he? As long as he doesn't give birth to a girl, he'll be a girl. The boy was so scared that he hurriedly ran behind Tangwa. Anagwa, help. Olga, you're too harsh. You really don't blame little Angie for not having a daughter. Olga pursed her lips and did not refute. All right, Angie, go back and change out of your dress. Angie heaved a sigh of relief. She cast a grateful look at Tangwa and ran away. Will they come out? Olga sat beside Tangwa with a smile on her face. I really want to see them. That bunch of ungrateful people. Chapter 7:13. Agwagwa, I had a scary dream last night. Everything that happened in the dream was different from now. Matagwa didn't unify the orc world. That was a nightmare, Olga said calmly. But her heart was not calm at all, because that dream was really too scary. It was so scary that she didn't want to remember it. What dream? Tangwa asked with a smile. Actually, she had guessed that such a thing would happen. Speaking of which, even if she lived as a Agwagwa for a lifetime, it still wasn't a Agwagwa's lifetime. I don't want to remember. That dream was very scary. Olga smiled. I'd better not tell you. Then don't tell me. Olga nodded. Her fingers were trembling. Her gaze towards the forest was filled with hatred. Finally, she looked at Tangwa beside her. She lowered her head and smiled. That was just a dream, right? It didn't really happen. Now, they were all doing well. Agwagwa had Inyao. She had Mikamil and her 5 children. Matagwa was very powerful. Agwagwa was the sage of Matagwa. Yin Yao was the grand tutor. Her Mikamil and Mikamil were the best merchants in Matagua. She laughed. She seemed to be the spouse of a merchant and Aguagua's good friend. After 3 days, there was movement in the forest. Tangua and Olga immediately sat up straight and looked towards the forest. Yin Yao, Mikamil, and the 5 children all shook their heads. It was like this every year. However, it was a little different this time. In the forest, a large group of people walked out. They looked very haggard. Their bodies were wrapped in animal skins, and they didn't look very good. Even though more than 10 years had passed, they could still recognize these people at a glance. Among them, Ning Luo was carried by a strong male. She didn't look very young anymore. Her skin was no longer white and smooth. It was even a little loose. The originally handsome males now had many scars on their bodies. The hideous scars looked really terrifying. Beside them, there were some half-grown children. After counting carefully, there were more than 10 of them. From their faces, they could be sure that they were the offspring of Ning Luo's spouses. Other than them, there were also some new faces among the original members of the Lado tribe. There were fewer old faces. Olga looked at the group of people standing outside the city gate, looking helpless and confused. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. I thought they would have some kind of reaction. So it's just like that. She recognized Gaines. His body was still as strong and burly as before, but he was also old. His brows were deeply furrowed, and even when they were open, there were deep wrinkles. This was caused by constant frowning. It was obvious that they were not doing well. Then, she would be happy. Mick, I need a clear mirror. Mill hurriedly presented a mirror to her. Olga looked at her youthful and beautiful face in the mirror, then looked at Ning Luo's sallow face that was gradually aging. She smiled. Ali, you've always been the most beautiful. Yes, Ali is the most beautiful girl. Mick and Mill hurried to compliment her. Ali enjoyed it very much. Later on, she didn't think of having other males. Even though many strong warriors confessed their love to her, she only liked Mick and Mill. She liked the way they looked at her, indulgent and doting, and her heart only had room for them. Just like Aguagua and Yin Yao, they only wanted each other. Mata country. Ning Luo heard these 3 words and almost fell off Gaines's back. Why would the city wall of Mata country be built here? Chapter 7:14. Why don't we go back to the forest? Gain hesitated for a moment before saying. Vigo shook his head. There's nothing left in the forest. We need to find another safe place. But in front of us is the city wall of Mata country. What if someone recognizes Luo Luo? Aimo said worriedly. Heilang said, let's go look at other places. It can't be that every place is the city wall of Mata country. If we go back to the forest, there's no food or water. We'll starve to death. We can't deal with the beasts that come every year. After so many years, the king of Mata country should have forgotten what happened back then. I think this city wall isn't normal. The city gate is also open. Why don't we try to go over and take a look? Mingju said. He had never seen such a tall, sturdy, and beautiful building. He was very curious about what had happened outside all these years. Mingju, you go and take a look. We'll find another way. When the time comes, we'll meet here. Tangua had the help of the system, so she was able to eavesdrop on their conversation. She couldn't help but smile. Heilang was right. Outside of this forest, everything else belonged to Matagua. She wondered if he would be pleasantly surprised when he found out. She had a flash of inspiration and had a very interesting idea. She summoned a warrior and said, when they want to come in together later, do you see that woman? Tell the 5 men that if they want to go in, they're not allowed to bring that woman. Tell the woman that if she wants to go in, she has to give up her 5 spouses and her children. Ask her children if they want to go in. They have to give up all their siblings and parents. In short, tell everyone that they can only go in if they give up their loved ones. Master Aguagua means that if they're willing to give up their loved ones, we'll let them in?
Yes.
Tangua smiled and said, if they say they're not willing, let them go outside and tell them again. They only have 2 chances to say their answer, and they have to say it loudly. Understood, Master Aguagua. Yin Yao glanced at Tangua. Tangua only smiled and said, yes, I'm taking revenge. Yin Yao touched her forehead and chuckled. I know, Agwagwa means revenge. A Yao, believe it or not, they will all go in eventually. Yin Yao was a little uncertain, but Olga said with certainty, they definitely won't lose a second chance. Agwagwa, you're really something. This revenge is good. Miku and Mil had long since noticed that something was wrong with Olga. It seemed that her hatred for the Lado tribe had deepened. When Mingju reached the city gate, he stated that he wanted to enter. The guard followed Tang's instructions and asked, Who are they to you? My family. I see. There is a rule in Mata. If you want to come in, you have to give up the people behind you before you can enter. You have 2 chances to choose. This is your first chance. Mingjio chose to turn around and leave, explaining the situation to the others. The others also looked around and found that they were surrounded by tall city walls, all of which belonged to Matao. They felt that something was wrong. I won't abandon Luoluo and my children. Me neither. The few of them expressed their opinions one after another, but the other members of the Lado tribe had already started to waver. The first person wavered on that day. He expressed that he was willing to cut off all ties with the people behind him and asked them to let him enter the city. He had really had enough of the days in the deep forest, as well as the bullying of Ning Luo's 5 spouses and the mischievous children of Ning Luo. They were really annoying. Chapter 7:15. On that day, other than Ning Luo's family, half of the members of the Rado tribe were willing to abandon their family and friends to enter the city. They would never know the people behind them again. Luo, I will never abandon you. Vigo held Ning Luo's hand. His affectionate words touched Ning Luo. Vigo, I will never abandon you. I will never abandon all of you. Gain, Aimo, Mingjio, and Heilang also expressed their stance. They would never abandon any of their members. In the end, Mingju expressed that he wanted to fly into the sky and see what was in the city. Ning Luo and the others agreed. The next day, the members of the Rado tribe entered the city early in the morning again. One of them even spat at Ning Luo when he passed by her. We finally got rid of you. Ning Luo's face turned pale. She didn't understand why the other party would treat her like this. If it wasn't for her, would the Rado tribe have been able to live comfortably in the forest for more than 10 years? Wasn't she the one who brought all the new things to the Rado tribe? Every member who entered the city looked at Ning Luo with disgust. This made Ning Luo feel helpless. She didn't do anything, so why did they treat her like this? What did she do wrong? Let me tell you, you think you didn't do anything wrong, right? You think you brought countless benefits to the Rado tribe and contributed the most, right? Ning Luo looked at the old beast man in front of her. She didn't understand. Wasn't that the case? She had helped them many times. The old beast man looked at the tall city wall in front of him and smiled. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have to hide in the forest and live for more than 10 years. It's fine that we came to live in the forest. After all, we are used to living in the forest. But Ning Luo, have you forgotten? All the good things in the forest are given to you by your powerful partners without any hesitation. No matter what it is, you have to choose first before we can give it to you. When the beast tide comes, they are the strongest warriors, but they always care about you and your children first. Once there is a conflict between the children of the tribe, no matter who is right or wrong, it is always the children of the other tribe members who are wrong. If your children make a mistake, you will always apologize for them and compensate us with some food. Have you forgotten that year when little Huzi pushed Ai's child into the river and drowned in the end? You only compensated Ai with animal skin and food. If she didn't accept it, then she was making things difficult for you, saying that she was arguing with a little brat. But you forget that she lost her child. Ning Luo, weren't you also furious about what she did in the end? Didn't you use that sharp knife of yours to chop her corpse into meat paste? Ning Luo, when these things didn't happen to you, of course you didn't care. You thought that you could just give them some compensation, something you could easily get, something you didn't care about, and that would appease them. Once something happens to you, you are more ruthless than anyone else. Ning Luo was at a loss for words. He didn't know what to say and could only bury his head and cry. The old orc looked regretful. If we had stood up to stop you when you wanted to hand over Agwagwa and let the Matagwa warriors take you away, that would have been better. That way, Ning Luo wouldn't be able to harm the Lado tribe, and he might even be able to destroy the country of Mata. Chapter 7:16. After the old orc finished speaking, he walked towards the city gate with a numb face. He wanted to abandon everything here. He wanted to leave this forest that had brought him endless sorrow. He wanted to leave Ning Luo, her mate, and her annoying children. Tangwa listened to the old orc's words and couldn't help but smile. You still don't understand. Agwagwa. Yin Yao was powerful and intelligent. He also heard the old orc's words and held her in his arms. Don't mind them. I've never cared about them, Tangwa smiled. Don't you know what I care about, Yao? She found that Yin Yao's ears were red. She burst into laughter in his arms. She laughed. They deserve it. They don't think about what they did wrong and always like to push the blame to others. Weren't the people who proposed to hand Agwagwa over originally members of the Lado tribe? Olga sneered. If they really realized it, they would understand that it was their own fault. Ning Luo was at fault, but the bigger fault lies with them. Tangwa looked at Olga, who was not very calm, and shouted, That's enough, Olga. I've never seen you so agitated before. Isn't that too infuriating? Just thinking about it makes me angry. Olga looked down at the members of the Lado tribe who entered the city one after another. I really want to go down and ask them if today is like when they wanted Agwagwa to leave. But today, they abandoned each other. I have to say, Agwagwa, this move of yours is really satisfying. Finally, her eyes fell on Gain and Ning Luo. She snorted. I also want to see how long Gain and Ning Luo can last without abandoning each other. Tangwa supported her chin. Well, let's continue watching. Let's see if their relationship is really indestructible or easily broken. Agwagwa, what would you do if you and Yin Yao encountered such a situation? Olga suddenly asked. Tangwa raised her eyebrows. No, Yao and I wouldn't encounter such a situation. Why don't you ask this question instead? If it was Ning Luo who went to Mata, would there be Mata today? We can't compare. I can change my own fate and the fate of the entire orc world. I won't end up like that. Olga looked at Tangwa, who was in high spirits and was stunned. She lowered her head and smiled. She muttered, Yes, there is no comparison. No one can compare to Agwagwa. No matter where you are, you're different. Not only can you change your own fate, but also the fate of others. Host, did you know that Olga's soul waves? Yes, answered Tangwa. Oh, I thought you didn't notice. She was so obvious. How could I not have noticed? The thickness of her soul is obviously different. I just didn't expect her to be reborn. Or perhaps it should be called the awakening of her previous life's memories. Many of her personalities are similar to this life, except that she is a little manic. Host, you don't have much time left in this world. According to the time Agwagwa died, your life should be extended by another 10 years. But this time, it was extended by 20 years. You only have 3 years left. I understand. I'm used to it. Don't talk to me in such a sad tone. You're not a human, you're just a system. The system was speechless. Can't I be emotional? The host is getting stricter with me. Tangwa suddenly reacted. Extended by 20 years. Chapter 7:17. Yes, it's been 20 years this time. I didn't receive a reminder from your lifeline before, and it's been more than 10 years. When I went to check, I found that it's been 20 years. Interesting. Tangwa was getting more and more curious about why she transmigrated to these worlds. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Only Ning Luo's family was left outside the city. Ning Luo and her spouses were still persevering. Mingjie flew up every day to observe the situation in the city. He didn't dare to fly above the city and could only watch from afar. He could still see the bustling city and houses that he had never seen before. The beastmen were all wearing beautiful clothes and jewelry necklaces that they had never seen before. They were much prettier than the animal bone necklaces. Ning Luo's family could also smell the fragrance of food coming from the city from time to time. Her children were drooling as they looked inside and swallowed their saliva. Mingjie told them what he had observed. It could be seen that everyone was in disbelief. How could the outside world have changed so much in just a dozen years? Ning Luo's children were envious. Her spouses were also looking at each other. They couldn't understand how Matagua had become so powerful. Mother, the smell inside is so good. It's even better than your meat soup. I want to eat it. I want to eat it too. It smells so good. Mother, can we go in and eat before coming out? Ning Luo's face turned pale. She looked at her children's longing eyes and her heart ached. The smell was really good, wasn't it? So it was normal for her children to want to eat. She couldn't blame her children. She had brought them through so much hardship. Mother, didn't the guard say that we have 2 chances? Can't we go in once and come out again? That way, we still have one more chance to go in. We can go in and eat twice. Yes, yes. Big brother, you're so smart. This is a good idea. Ning Luo pursed her lips and didn't agree. Mingjiu described the environment in the city too well. It was as if it was a human world. This made her panic. 2 chances? She was afraid that if she went in and came out the first time, she wouldn't want to come out the second time. If the children like it so much, why don't we let them go in first and come out later? Gain said. Ning Luo shook his head. No, no one is allowed to enter. You are not allowed to enter. I will never forgive anyone who dares to enter. Seeing this, Olga couldn't help but smile. She's afraid. Who in Ning Luo's position wouldn't be afraid? Gain, let's go back to the forest. Our family will live in the forest forever. Ganayan and the others couldn't bear to see Ning Luo angry. They hurriedly coaxed her and said that they would take her back to the forest and never come out again. The children were also afraid that Ning Luo would be angry, so they turned around and left. Mingjiu also turned his head to look at the tall city walls. Thinking back to what he had seen in the city, his eyes were filled with envy. The inside of the city was really something to look forward to. However, he couldn't abandon Luo Luo just because he yearned for life in the city. Are they leaving just like that? Olga asked, puzzled. She was unwilling to give up. But 2 days later, Ali laughed. It turned out that the members of the Rado tribe who had entered the city wanted to leave the city one more time. The guard said that they had 2 chances to leave the city and return, and they would never leave again. Chapter 7:18. Haha, how interesting. These are the members of the Lado tribe. Olga laughed out loud. She looked at the clothes they were wearing and beautiful accessories. They were even carrying all sorts of food. She wondered how they got their hands on them as they walked towards the forest. Before long, their hands were empty. They returned to the city with satisfied smiles on their faces. A few days later, Ning Luo's children appeared. They sneaked into the city while it was still early. After the children entered the city, they were dazzled by everything in the city. In the end, they sold their animal bone necklaces and some rare meat jerky. They finally had delicious food. The little girls also bought beautiful accessories and left reluctantly. 2 days later, they came again. This time, they spent a day in the city. In the end, everyone decided not to go out. This place was too beautiful. They could eat a lot of delicious food and wear many beautiful clothes. They had forgotten about their parents in the forest. If they went out this time, they would never be able to come back again. Haha. Olga laughed until tears came out of her eyes. I didn't expect that the first to betray her would be her own child. Interesting, very interesting. Tangwa didn't say anything. This was all within her expectations. Most people couldn't resist temptation. No matter how strong a relationship was, it would be unassailable after the test of some special circumstances. When she was in a relationship, she liked both parties to be on equal footing. At least she had the ability to protect this relationship and maintain the purity of this relationship. Purity wasn't static. It required effort, sincerity, material, and other external conditions to maintain it. Needless to say, Ning Luo must be very sad right now. He would also ask people to look for his children. As expected, in less than 2 days, it was Aimo and Hei Lang who appeared outside the city. Tangwa and the others had been observing their behavior in the city. They first exchanged for money before going to look for their children. Of course, they couldn't bring them back. In the end, they went to buy food. They didn't forget to bring some for Ning Luo. They also bought beautiful jewelry and beautiful dresses for Ning Luo. They couldn't bear to go back. Where are the children? Ning Luo looked at Aimo and Hei Lang. I asked you to look for the children, and you came back with food and clothes? Ning Luo was so anxious that she cried. The men quickly coaxed her. Although Ning Luo complained, after being coaxed by the men, she looked at the beautiful dresses and smiled happily. In front of them, she once again wore the exquisite clothes of humans. She looked at the reflection in the water and the face that was no longer young. She was stunned. She suddenly remembered that she was no longer the 18-year-old girl who took the college entrance exam. She had lived in the orc world for more than 10 years and was now in her 30s. Even though she had 5 loving spouses, her youth was slipping away. When she put on the beautiful clothes, she found that the belt was not good. Even if she held her breath, she could not make her waist slimmer. She remembered that she had given birth to more than 10 children. Her stomach had terrible stretch marks, like a layer of old tree bark. She was not a beast man, but a human. She had given birth to more than 10 children, and her body had long been damaged. The conditions in the forest were so harsh that it was impossible for her to maintain her body. Even though her hands were fair and slender, and her feet were beautiful, once she took off her clothes, one would see that her body was covered with the traces of time. Chapter 719. She lifted her head abruptly and looked at her spouses. They were smiling at her with love in their eyes. However, they weren't the same as 10 years ago when they wanted to do something with her. Ning Luo was confused. She had been in the forest for more than 10 years and had given birth to more than 10 children for these men. Why did she do that? Luo, do you like it? I like it, Ning Luo replied. Aimo was happy. Then I'll get Gain, Vigo, to buy it for you tomorrow. We have a lot of animal skins and bones. We can exchange them for currency and trade with them. Ning Luo was stunned. Mata country had currency? If she had gone to Mata country back then, would her fate have been different? That night, Ning Luo didn't sleep well. In her dream, a prosperous and ancient city appeared. It was filled with the dresses and jewelry that Aimo and Hei Lang had brought back for her. In the middle of the night, she woke up in shock. She looked at the men sleeping around her. She was lying in Vigo's arms. She had slept beside Vigo every night for many years. It had been 3 years, 5 years. She remembered that when they first started, they took turns hugging her to sleep every night. She was in a daze. Vigo opened his eyes and hugged her. He kissed her forehead. Why aren't you sleeping? Vigo, you won't leave me, right? Ning Luo held onto Vigo tightly and asked. Vigo smiled. My silly Luo, I'm willing to give up my life for you. How can I leave you? I exchanged my life for yours. Ning Luo closed her eyes. Vigo wouldn't abandon her. She believed in him. In the morning, Mingjio disappeared. The 4 men and Ning Luo were silent for a moment. Then Gain said, We won't go to the city today. Every night, Ning Luo needed Vigo to hug her to sleep. 2 days later, Gain went to the city to look for the children. He brought them good things at night. Ning Luo could feel that Gain had changed. Vigo, do you want to go to the city to take a look? Ning Luo asked. Vigo kissed Ning Luo's lips. I don't want to go there. Vigo was telling the truth. He liked living in caves. Compared to wearing human clothes, he preferred not to wear them. It was more comfortable. He didn't like houses. Vigo, I feel like I'm going to lose you. Luo, don't think too much. No matter what, I won't abandon you. After that, Imo disappeared, Black Wolf left, and Gaines disappeared as well. Only Ning Luo and Vigo were left in the forest. Vigo, I want to eat the buns from the city. I'll go help you. Ning Luo pursed his lips. Let's go together. The 2 of them entered the city one after another. Ning Luo ate her favorite buns and bought a beautiful dress. Finally, she left the city and met up with Vigo outside. One morning, Vigo woke up. His side was very cold. Ning Luo was no longer there. He stared blankly at the huge cave for a long time. Finally, he transformed into his original form. A giant snake curled up in the cave and fell asleep. Snakes were lonely and cold-blooded. They had no companions with other creatures. In fact, they preferred to curl up their cold bodies in their holes and sleep. If they could share a bed with anything for many years, it would be only their love and food. Ning Luo came to the city and blended into the crowd. She found a job and did anything to survive in the city. Later on, she saw her children. They hid when they saw her, as though they were afraid that they would be chased out of the city if they got close to her. She also saw Mingjio, Black Wolf, Imo, and Gain. She pretended not to see them, and they pretended not to see her. Chapter 720. Later, they went to Mata's ceremony and saw a few familiar faces. The most respected sage of Mata and the Grand Tutor sat together in an ancient and luxurious carriage. They sat hand in hand. Every time they looked at each other, they could feel the deep affection between them. Ning Luo was stunned. He Lang and the others also stared blankly at the carriage. Lady Guagua is really the smartest sage. Yes, it's all thanks to Lady Guagua that Mata was able to unify the orc world. The Grand Tutor is also very powerful. He brought back so many good things for us. I also heard that Lady Guagua was captured by King Larry. She was smart enough to choose to cooperate with the kind and friendly King Siri. That's how Mata became what it is today. Thank you, King Siri, for bringing Lady Guagua to us. I wish them a long life and good health every day. Hearing the legend of Tangua, Ning Luo's face turned pale. He leaned to the side, unable to exert any strength. He Lang also looked at the carriage in shock. His eyes were sour, and he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. Was it regret? Perhaps it was. He once said that Ning Luo was more important to the tribe and to him. Who would have thought that Guagua could change the entire orc world? It was obvious who was more important. Even Ning Luo, who was very important to him, was abandoned without hesitation. Did he like Ning Luo? Yes, he did. But as time passed, this affection faded and disappeared. The members of the Lado tribe also saw Guagua. Their reactions were similar to Ning Luo's. They regretted that they didn't stop Guagua from being taken away. By the time they saw Olga and her spouse and knew who they were, their regret and annoyance had reached its peak. In the days that followed, the members of the Lado tribe couldn't help but mock Ning Luo whenever they saw her. He Lang and the others didn't seem to notice. When Ning Luo was bullied by the members of the Lado tribe in the corner, she recalled the past and regretted not letting Vigo go with her. If Vigo was here, he would definitely protect her. She wanted to go back to Vigo, but she couldn't give up the prosperity here. She had no chance to enter the city again. She hoped so much that Vigo would come to find her, but she waited, and Vigo still didn't come. Tangua's life was coming to an end. Inyao had already sensed it. Guagua, you don't need to comfort me. You're leaving soon. I'm going to lose you. No matter what you say, it won't be able to comfort me. Guagua, I'm very sad. You're so smart, and you're receiving the blessings of all the orcs in Mata. Why don't you stay with me longer? Inyao hugged Tangua and kissed her forehead sincerely. Then I won't say anything to comfort you. I look forward to seeing you in the next life. Inyao smiled. Mayagua really knows how to coax people. He hugged her. All right, see you in the next life then. Olga came to Tangua's side and held her hand. She stared at her and said, Guagua, you too, right? She also had memories of her past life, right? Sort of. Tangua's eyes crinkled as she smiled. Olga hugged her and whispered in her ear, I was too willful in the past. I'm sorry. It's okay. Tangua's life had come to an end. But for millions of years to come, she would live forever in the hearts of the people of Mata. There were statues of Guagua the Wise everywhere. There were countless people who worshipped her. Beside her statue was Inyao, the Grand Tutor who died for love. Their wisdom made them admire them. Their love was so pure that they yearned for it. Tangua woke up this time. She was sitting in front of the computer table. She looked around. This was a small cubicle made with beautiful curtains. Around the computer table, there was a microphone, a sound system, and a series of live broadcast equipment. There was even a gaming cabin at the side. Gaming? Live broadcast? These words popped up in her mind. Then, her phone rang. Chapter 721. Tangua looked at the caller ID and saw the words, Phone you. She picked it up and the voice came from the other side of the phone. Xiaogua, I saw that you went offline. Where do you want to go for dinner tonight? I'll listen to you. Tangua hadn't received the memory yet, so she answered instinctively. Phone you didn't doubt her and laughed. Let's go to the same old place. I'll come and pick you up. Yes, you can come in an hour. I know, I know. You need to remove your makeup and put on a perfect makeup for a date with your boyfriend. I'll wait for you. After hanging up the phone, Tangwa raised her eyebrows and glanced at the interface of the phone. Boyfriend. She didn't know if it was a good or bad boyfriend. The legs of the system trembled. Host, do you want to receive the memory? Yes, go to the bathroom to receive it. Soaking in the bathtub, Tangwa began to receive the plot of this world. The original owner was a rich second generation who owned a mine. She didn't have any siblings and only had a pair of parents who loved her. Her life could be said to be carefree. After graduating from university, she entered the live broadcasting industry. At first, she did Yeni. Later, she felt that it was boring and began to be a game streamer. The games she played were all popular games in recent years. Inadvertently, she found some horror games with interesting plots. Since then, she became the only female horror game streamer on the live broadcasting platform. She usually chose 2 time slots to broadcast, afternoon and midnight. After she became a horror game streamer, her popularity increased and she attracted a group of diehard fans. Every night, they would take out their phones from under the quilt and click on her live broadcast room, screaming and scaring to watch her live broadcast. The female lead of this world was called Xia. She was a high school girl who was addicted to games and died suddenly in an internet cafe. After her death, her brain waves inadvertently ran into a horror game, and she faced all kinds of scary scenes every day. It could be said that her life was a bit miserable. All of this changed after she met her male lead. And the male lead of this world was Fengyu, who called her just now. He was currently her boyfriend, and his family made games. Fengyu himself was a gaming genius. Almost all the games of the Feng family were controlled by him. There were also many small games that were independently developed by him. When he was inadvertently designing a horror game, he found the abnormal game data and found the existence of the female lead, Xia. He successfully communicated with Xia. After knowing what had happened to Xia, Fengyu decided to save her. However, when he found Xia's house, Xia's body had already been cremated. At that time, he did not think of a way to bring Xia out of the game. Later on, when he wrote code and designed games every day, there would always be a Xia by his side. A real person and a dead person fell in love with each other through brainwaves. Xia was not completely useless. She could often enter the game to help him find beasts that he had not discovered. The two of them were getting more and more in sync, and they were getting more and more in love. Originally, this had nothing to do with the original owner. As mentioned before, Fengyu was a genius game designer. After 3 years, he finally thought of a way to bring Xia out. Right now, he loved Yushi and Xia the most. For Xia, he was even willing to take risks and hurt others. This victim was the original owner. Fengyu had obtained it from the data. As long as she found someone with similar brainwaves to Xia, she could bring Xia's brainwaves out. Chapter 722. For this reason, he went to the hospital to test the brainwaves of dying people, but he never found a suitable one. Once, he found a suitable one, but when the brainwaves of the deceased left, the body died instantly. Xia's brainwaves couldn't enter the brain at all. In the end, after more than a year, he realized that when the other party was alive, and even when Xia's brainwaves entered the other party's brain, the other party's brainwaves couldn't leave. Only when Xia's brainwaves took over the brain and controlled the body could he drive out the brainwaves of the deceased. Then, he would succeed. Xia was hesitant about this result. She wasn't worried about hurting others, but that Fengyu would be found out. After all, it was equivalent to murder, and he would have to go to jail. In the end, Fengyu secretly did this behind Xia's back. He designed many games, especially for female gamers. He attracted a large number of female gamers and let them experience the game. Of course, he couldn't test the brainwaves of the other party only by using a mobile phone to play games. But what if there was a gaming helmet? It would be easy to record the brainwave data of the players. After more than half a year of testing, he chose more than 10 people. In the end, he eliminated the age, appearance, brainwave data, and other aspects of the other party and selected the original owner. Fengyu was very satisfied with the original owner's brainwave data, family background, and appearance. Moreover, the original owner rarely went out. Basically, she spent most of her time with games. She rarely interacted with people, so no one would suspect that her personality had changed. Next, he made a series of plans to get close to the original owner. He found that the original owner had no interest in finding a boyfriend at all. It was as if all her thoughts were on games. In the end, he decided to use games to attract the original owner. As expected, he succeeded. In 2 months, the two of them confirmed their relationship. When they were together, they didn't interact with each other affectionately, but with games. When the original owner found out that Feng Yu designed games, she was obviously more interested in him. After meeting Feng Yu took the initiative to design some scary games for her. After this, the entire audience on the platform knew that the horror games that the original owner played were all designed by her boyfriend. This undoubtedly made the original owner happy, and she liked Feng Yu a little more. But she didn't know that Feng Yu was using these games to push her step by step into the abyss and take her life in the end. After everything was prepared, Feng Yu gave the original owner a gaming chamber. The original owner's brainwaves were squeezed out from this gaming chamber. After he succeeded, he inserted the brainwaves of the original Xia Yi into the computer. Originally, he wanted to eliminate her by deleting the data. However, Xia Yi, who had just woken up, accidentally knocked over the water on the table. The water spilled onto the computer. When the computer was fixed, the original owner's brainwaves would disappear. Later on, Xia Yi took over everything that belonged to the original owner of the body. She was a gamer, so she started to work as the original owner of the body. The horror games that she played were even designed by Feng Yu. Among them, the most famous were 3 horror games: Zombie Bride, Vampire Bride, and Ghost King's Bride. In these 3 games, the player had to help the human bride avoid zombies, vampires, and ghost kings to succeed. So far, not even Xia Yi had succeeded. These 3 games were also known as levels that could never be cleared in the world of horror games. It wasn't that the bride ended up marrying a zombie, vampire, or ghost king. It was that the bride ended up committing suicide every single time. Chapter 723. Feng Yu had checked the 3 horror games and found no abnormalities. Later, he fixed the games, but the result was still the same. Later, because the 3 horror games could never be closed, the Feng group and Xia Yi became popular. He just let it go and didn't plan to fix the games. Until Xia Yi fell into a coma because she wanted to use the game capsule to play the 3 games. Then, Feng Yu found out the abnormalities of the 3 games. It turned out that the 3 brides committed suicide every time, not because of the data, but because of the brainwaves of the original owner. She couldn't leave the game, so she could only take revenge in this way. But she still hated Feng Yu and wanted to take revenge on Feng Yu and Xia Yi. She wanted to kill them all. Later, when Xia Yi used the game capsule, she attacked Xia Yi's brainwaves. However, her ability was not strong enough, and she could only make Xia Yi fall into a coma. In the end, Feng Yu found out. Feng Yu joined forces with many computer experts to destroy the original owner. Later, the original owner's parents found that there was something wrong with their daughter. After several tests, they found that the brainwaves belonged to Xia Yi's daughter, not their daughter. Xia Yi was very vigilant because of the previous incident. Knowing that the original owner's parents were suspicious, she told Feng Yu about it. After Feng Yu learned about it, he designed to make the original owner's parents brain dead. With his skillful skills and the background of the Feng group's genius game designer, no one suspected him. In the end, he and Xia Yi got married and lived happily for the rest of their lives. They had a tacit understanding to keep this secret. Tanghua opened her eyes, wrapped herself in a bath towel, changed her clothes, and dried her hair. She didn't speak. The system hid in the corner and shivered. It was not a good sign that the host didn't speak. She must be planning something big. Host, now that you are here and nothing has happened, can we stop this from happening? The system couldn't help but ask. It really wanted to know the host's plan, but intuition told it that it wouldn't be so easy. Tanghua laughed. How can it be so easy? If I don't fall into their trap, they won't make mistakes. Maybe they will make mistakes, but I won't be blamed. Then, how can I take revenge? For the sake of 2 people's love, an entire family was killed. I'm thinking of a way to return the favor. Tanguo was drying her hair, her eyes narrowed. The dangerous aura she was emitting made the system tremble. Dear host, we are teammates. Can you not be so scary? After drying her hair, Tanguo put on a light makeup that the original owner liked according to her memory. Looking at her beautiful face in the mirror, the corners of her mouth gently hooked up. From now on, she is the owner of this body and has accepted everything about this body. Family, friends, enemies, hobbies, feelings, hatred. She took her phone and handbag, walked to the shoe cabinet, and changed into a pair of 10 centimeters high heels. When she opened the door, she saw a familiar handsome face. She smiled at him. When did you come? Not long ago. You must be lying. Well, you guessed right. I've been waiting for half an hour. Feng Yu smiled and handed a beautiful rose to Tanguo. Tanguo gladly accepted it. It's very beautiful. I like it. Xiaoguo, as long as you like it. Feng Yu observed Tanguo's face and felt that she was a little different today. Chapter 724. Of course, he did not suspect that Tanguo already knew his purpose. Otherwise, with her personality, she would definitely not talk to him in a pleasant manner, so he was not worried at all. The two of them went to the restaurant, and Feng Yu was very gentlemanly as he ordered Tanguo's favorite dishes. The two of them ate and chatted about the game. Almost all they talked about was the game. However, Feng Yu did not know that at this time, Tanguo already liked him very much. She was really moved by him, but she did not have the time to tell him. Now that she was here, of course, she had to let him know about her true feelings. Feng Yu. What's wrong, Xiaoguo? Feng Yu raised his head and gave Tanguo the most appropriate smile. It seemed that whenever he faced her, he would always smile like this. Tanguo held her fork and chuckled. Do you like me? Of course I do. If I didn't like you, why would I chase you for so long and even design a special game for you? Feng Yu had already thought about these words many times in his mind, so he did not feel any pressure to say them. A smile appeared on Tanguo's face. I like you too. It's not the game that I liked you at the beginning. Feng Yu looked at this somewhat pure smile and his heart stopped. There was an indescribable feeling, but he quickly ignored it. Tanguo lowered her head and took a small sip of red wine. She looked at Feng Yu with smiling eyes. In the past, my game was more important than you. One day, I suddenly realized that you are more important than my game. Feng Yu, I think I like you very much. Feng Yu had not heard such a pure confession in a long time. It was because of this pure confession that he found it difficult to breathe. He forced a smile and quickly thought of Xia Yi. His smile became more natural. It's my honor to be liked by Miss Tang. I plan to change the time of the live broadcast. In the future, it will be from 8 to 12 in the evening. I will leave the afternoon for you. Tanguo said to herself, if you're not free, I'll go to your company to find you. After all, we're in a relationship. You like me, and I like you. It's not fair for you to come to me alone. I want to try to do something for you, so it's fair. Actually, there's no need for that. I'm willing to spend time with Xiaoguo because I like you. Feng Yu was a little nervous, because Tanguo was going to show up in her company. Xia Yi definitely couldn't come out. Tanguo acted as if she didn't know. She just said, you said it yourself. You're willing. Because I like you, I'm willing to spend time with you and get to know you better. Unless you think that I will annoy you, or you don't like me that much. That's why you rejected my good intentions. Of course, Feng Yu could not answer like that. He smiled and said, I'm afraid that this will bring you trouble and make you feel tired. Playing games is very interesting, but designing games is very boring. It's okay. It's not boring at all to be with my boyfriend. Tanguo's smile was sweet and sincere. Feng Yu couldn't refuse and could only agree. System. The host really doesn't give me a way out. It's a familiar trick. In the end, Feng Yu sent Tanguo home with mixed feelings. He was afraid that Tanguo would come up and give him a goodbye kiss. Fortunately, it didn't happen. She just waved her hand and said, see you tomorrow. She also said that she had a good dinner tonight and closed the door. Isn't he going to take my body for his true love? Tanguo looked at the mirror and smiled. Before that, I want to be the true love hidden in his heart that he doesn't even know about. System. It's a little cold. Chapter 725. At 11 o'clock in the evening, Tangwa connected to the live stream because the second period of her previous live streams was from 11 to 3 o'clock. As soon as she opened the live stream, many familiar faces and die-hard fans rushed in to greet her. They also asked her what game she was playing today and what level of horror she was at so that they could prepare themselves. Tangwa turned the camera to her and smiled. "I won't be live streaming today. I'm just here to say hello." "Tang, why aren't you live streaming?" "I'm still waiting to fall asleep listening to the horror background music." "Are you sure you can fall asleep while listening to Tang's live stream of horror games? Why don't you let Tang sing a song so that you can fall asleep faster?" "Is Tang going on a date with her boyfriend and having a sweet and crazy night? Is that why she's not live streaming?" I understand. Live streamers need nightlife too. We're all adults and we understand." The live stream was noisy. After 2 minutes, when Tangwa saw that the number of viewers had soared to 2 million, she said, "I'm here to inform all of you that I'm going to change the time of my live stream from now on. In the afternoon, I'll change it to 8 to 12. I won't be live streaming at midnight." As soon as Tangwa finished speaking, the fans in the live stream started to discuss. They were all wondering what was wrong with her and why she was changing the time of her live stream. With this change, she would lose 3 to 4 hours of live stream time. Although there weren't that many people in the afternoon because everyone had work, there were still many people who liked to watch horror games in her live stream to experience the thrill and excitement. They wanted to watch Tangwa play all the horror games that they didn't dare to play. It was their own wish. Now that they heard that Tangwa's live stream was going to lose 4 hours, they couldn't accept it at all and protested in the live stream. "Don't worry, everyone. If you're free, I can live stream for you too." Even though some people in the live stream had already started to scold her, Tangwa still smiled at them. Live streamers have their own lives too. You can't spend all your time on games, right? You can't watch my live stream from morning till night, right? Perhaps her voice was magical, but the fans in the live stream calmed down. There had to be a reason why Tang's live stream was going to lose 4 hours, right? Tangwa replied, "Because I have to accompany my boyfriend in the afternoon, fuck. Okay, you can do it." Tang, I really don't know what to say in a few words. You actually forgot your friends when you saw a man. You actually want to abandon us for your boyfriend. Hearing this reason, the fans felt like they had been forced to eat a mouthful of dog food, but they were not that excited. Tangwa continued, "In the future, in the afternoon, I might occasionally broadcast my life with my boyfriend. He's a very good game designer. You know that. Aren't you curious about the life of a game designer?" Of course they were curious. The fans quickly replied. She said that if it was convenient for her, she would definitely broadcast her and her boyfriend's life and work more often. They were really not afraid of being stuffed. After communicating with her fans, Tangwa turned off the live stream with a smile on her face. The first step was to introduce Fengyu to all her fans. The second step was to broadcast their time together to the fans. She would use the remaining feelings of the original owner to treat Fengyu well. She would guarantee that he would remember this sweet love for the rest of his life. Chapter 726. The next morning, Tangwa woke up very early and made 2 perfect breakfasts. She took a photo and posted it on her livestream account with the caption, "Making breakfast for my boyfriend. Fans, fuck. I woke up early and was fed a mouthful of dog food." Tangwa carried the thermos box and drove to the Phone Corporation building to wait. The people who entered the building couldn't help but look at her. Her face was too outstanding. She had been a live streamer before, so it was impossible for her to be ugly. In fact, she was even more beautiful in real life than when she appeared on the live stream. Fengyu had never brought Tangwa here, and Tangwa had never thought of coming here either. The two of them had met because of the game. They had gotten along as a couple because of the game. There were many things that a couple should do between them. Fengyu got out of the car and immediately saw Tangwa standing in the wind. He was surprised and quickly walked over with the most perfect smile on his face. "Xiaogua, why are you here?" He was a little puzzled. It was the first time Tangwa had come to the Phone Corporation building to look for him. Even if she had said that she would come to look for him yesterday, they had agreed to meet in the afternoon. A smile appeared on Tangwa's beautiful face. She looked straight at Fengyu with her beautiful eyes and didn't hide her love for him. She handed the thermos box in her hand to Feng Yu. "Yu, you must not have eaten breakfast. It must be a bread and a cup of coffee later. I made it myself. I don't know if it's to your taste. You can try it first. If you like it, I'll bring it to you every morning." Feng Yu's heart stopped. He looked at the thermos box in her fair and slender hands. It was impossible for her hands to cook often. What she liked most was to stay up late to play games, and then sleep until noon. Then she would order takeout to eat, do a facial, and start live streaming the game. He knew all this not because he liked her, but because he wanted to know more about her and get closer to her. That was why he had done so much research. "Why? You don't like it? Do you think that it must taste bad?" Tanghua was a little unhappy. "It's my good intentions. Yu, are you really not going to try it?" Feng Yu came back to his senses and didn't dare to look at her eyes. He hadn't noticed it before, but her eyes were really beautiful and clean. She was different from other game streamers. Other game streamers did it for fame and money. She, on the other hand, came from a good family background. She streamed games simply because she liked them. If she really wanted to become famous and earn money, she would definitely choose to play popular games. With her style, it would be easy for her to become the top sister of the platform. He took the insulated box and said, "Thank you. Doesn't Xiaogua like to sleep in? It's not good for your health to wake up so early last night." "I didn't live stream last night." Tanghua stood beside him. She tilted her head and smiled as she said, "Didn't we agree to leave the afternoon for Yu? I've discussed it with my fans. In the future, the time of the live broadcast will be changed to 8 p.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Sleeping until 7 o'clock p.m. is enough. Breakfast takes half an hour. It only took me 10 minutes to drive here. I'm just on time." "That's very hard. Just buy some food for breakfast." For a game designer who was addicted to designing games, it was normal to not have time to eat breakfast. When he was hungry, he would eat something casually. Even lunch and dinner were not on time. When he was serious, he didn't like people to disturb him. In the past, when the servants at home sent him food, they were all sent away by him. Chapter 727. Let's go in and have a seat. Tanghua had brought him breakfast. Feng Yu didn't want to take it, so he chased her away. Hearing his words, Tanghua naturally held his arm, but his body stiffened. Tanghua turned her head and asked, "What's wrong? Are you shy? Are you afraid that the people in the company will ask who I am? Can't you just say that I'm your girlfriend?" "I'm thinking that Xiaogua is so beautiful. If someone sees her later, I'll feel a little uncomfortable." Feng Yu had prepared these words long ago. In order to achieve his goal, he had secretly done a lot of homework. He was so meticulous that he knew the meaning and reaction of every sentence better than people who were really in love. He was also prepared to explain his unintentional actions. "Oh, so you're jealous." Feng Yu's body slowly relaxed. He smiled at Tanghua and led her into the company. After entering the company, they were indeed sized up by many people. "Young Master Feng, is this your girlfriend?" Feng Yu nodded and said reservedly, "Yes." He formally introduced Tanghua to the company's members. He looked very serious, making everyone think that this was a girlfriend that he was very serious about and that he was going to marry in the future. Everyone looked at Tanghua with even more gentleness and enthusiasm. This was the future young madam of the Feng Corporation. "Are you Tang Tang?" Unexpectedly, there were also people in the Feng Corporation who watched Tanghua's live broadcast and recognized Tanghua at a glance. The other party's eyes widened. He couldn't believe that the female horror game streamer he had been following was actually young Master Feng's girlfriend. Thinking back to last night when Tanghua said that she wanted to accompany her boyfriend, the other party almost fainted. How was he going to live with this dog food every day? Tanghua smiled and greeted the other party. She admitted her identity and followed Feng Yu to his office. And the employee who knew Tanghua quickly told the people around him about this amazing female game streamer. He told them about Tanghua's first live broadcast as Yin Yi. Later on, she played a few popular games and finally chose the unpopular horror game. He even said that he had watched so many female game streamers, but he hadn't seen anyone who played better than her. "Eat breakfast first. I'll make coffee for you." Tanghua opened the thermos and handed it to Feng Yu. Then, she turned and left. A beautiful woman would be popular no matter where she was. When they heard that she wanted to make coffee for Feng Yu, everyone enthusiastically guided her to the pantry. Feng Yu sat in his office and touched the USB in his pocket. There was nothing but Xia Yi's brainwaves. In order to prevent any accidents from happening to Xia Yi, he sent Xia Yi's brainwave data to the USB flash drive and carried it with him. Whenever he was alone, he would put her on the computer. He looked at the breakfast in front of him, released his hand, and began to eat. The taste was surprisingly good. It could be said that the food in front of him was not as delicious as the food in front of him. When Tangua returned, he had already finished half of the breakfast in the thermos. Tangua asked him, "Is it to your liking?" "It's delicious. I've never had such a delicious breakfast." He looked at Tangua. This was the most sincere compliment he had given her in the year they had known each other. "Really, it's very delicious." He was afraid that she wouldn't believe him, so he quickly added. He didn't know that he was afraid that she wouldn't believe him and would be unhappy. It was because he was starting to care about her. "The coffee is ready. Since it's delicious, you eat more. I'll make more for you tomorrow." System. No one can withstand the host's gentleness. Chapter 728. After breakfast and resting for a while, Feng Yu subconsciously picked up his coffee and took a sip. His eyes were filled with amazement. He had done so much research on her, but it seemed that he still did not know her well enough. Recalling that she did not cook or make coffee in the past, he could not help but sneak a glance at the beautiful woman sitting quietly not far away. She really looked like an angel as she held her phone in her hand. He quickly lowered his head and did not look at her. If he looked at her for too long, he was afraid that he would not be able to do it. Had he not been preparing for a long time for Little E to come back to life? Little E had been by his side for more than 5 years. Their relationship was so deep that neither of them could leave the other. After taking 2 sips of coffee, he began to focus on his work on the computer. During this time, Tangua did not say a word. She only secretly took a picture of Feng Yu's side profile and uploaded it to her social media account with the caption, "A hardworking boyfriend." Feng Yu was so focused on his work that he barely looked up. When he felt that it was time, he stretched and subconsciously looked at where Tangua had been sitting. However, she was nowhere to be seen. He shook his head. It was just a little bit of heat. He picked up the cold coffee and took a sip. Although it was cold, it still tasted good. Without hesitation, he drank it all. Then, he immersed himself in his work again and completely forgot to eat. At about 12:30 p.m., he felt that something was wrong in the office. When he looked up, he saw Tangua and the 2 lunch boxes in her hands. He was a little surprised. "I happen to be free today. Ayu, since you're working, I didn't want to disturb you. So, I went home and made some food for you. I heard that you liked it this morning, so I made more." Tangua put the insulated box on the desk with a smile. "Are you done with your work? Even if you're not, you should eat first." Feng Yu felt an indescribable mix of emotions. However, he was soon attracted by the delicious food. Why had he not noticed before that he would feel hungry when it was time to eat? "Xiaogua, have you eaten?" Tangua shook her head. "No, I rushed over because I wanted to eat with you." It tasted even better than this morning. The dishes were also very sumptuous. Even the snow-white rice tasted better than what he had eaten before. Her culinary skills were so good that she didn't seem like a rich girl who only liked to play games. It had been a long time since he had eaten such a delicious and appetizing meal. He actually ate more than half of the meal by himself. After eating, he felt a little embarrassed. "It's too delicious." "It's okay. I don't eat much anyway. I'm happy to see that you likes it." Tangua's gaze was very sincere. Feng Yu quickly remembered his purpose and hurriedly shifted her gaze away. "Is it boring to keep me company here?" "It's okay. Actually, it's not boring. Although I'm still sitting at the side and playing games, I can always remember that there's another person beside me. It's different. I'll bring you breakfast and lunch in the future, you." Feng Yu hurriedly refused. "No, it's too tiring for you. You still have to broadcast until midnight. It's not good for your health if you don't get enough sleep. Then I'll bring you lunch. I'll stay at your company in the afternoon. I even promised my fans that I'll live stream the life of a game designer. You don't make me go back on my word." Feng Yu was a little unable to reject this beautiful and gentle woman in front of him. He subconsciously nodded. Okay. After agreeing, he was stunned. However, he couldn't go back on his word. Seeing her happy expression, he felt more and more upset. Chapter 729. This is our genius video game designer. He has contributed to many of the games that you play. One afternoon, Tangwa held a selfie stick in her hand. With Feng Yu's permission, she began to share her work with her fans. When the fans in the live stream saw Feng Yu, they began to cheer. Initially, they thought that they would be bored when Tangwa reduced her live stream time by half. However, they did not expect that their lives in the afternoon would be even more interesting. Most of the people who watched the live stream were fans of video games. Even if they were not good at the game, they would still enjoy the game. However, they now realized that they preferred watching Tangwa's live stream with her video game designer boyfriend. Especially when they saw Tangwa preparing delicious food for Feng Yu every day. The fans began to wonder why they did not choose video game design as their major. Otherwise, they might have had such a beautiful and considerate girlfriend like Tangwa. The male fans were truly envious of Feng Yu. Feng Yu also watched Tangwa's live broadcast. From the words of the male fans, he could feel their envy. Vaguely, he felt a sense of pride in his heart. However, he soon cast that thought aside. He did not forget his goal. Just like that, Tangwa occasionally streamed live in Feng Yu's office in the afternoon. At night, she streamed the horror games that Feng Yu had designed for her. Her fans spent the entire time watching their public display of affection. Late at night, Feng Yu returned home. He turned on his computer and took out a USB flash drive before letting Xia Yi out. Xia Yi's figure appeared on the computer screen. She was very happy to see him. You? Why are you so late today? Why haven't you brought me to the office for the past 2 months? Recently, the office has added a lot of surveillance cameras. There are a lot of people coming in and out. If they find out about Yi's existence, I don't know what kind of danger you will be in. For safety reasons, it's better to leave you at home. Xia Yi was only a high school student. Even if she was a high school student 5 or 6 years ago, she was still a high school student. Therefore, she did not think too much about it. All she thought about every day was being able to talk to Feng Yu. After all, Feng Yu was the one who brought her out of those horror games. Don't worry. I will find a suitable body for you very soon. Xia Yi was a little worried. It's fine if you can't find one. Please don't do anything that will hurt others. I'm worried that something might happen to you. If you get caught, it's murder. You could go to jail. I know. With a gentle smile on her face, Feng Yu caressed the screen and even kissed it. Little it'll be soon. I'll succeed in half a year at most. There won't be any problems this time. Trust me. When you come out, we'll get married. Yes, you is the best. I believe that you will be able to take me out of here. Xia Yi fantasized about their happy days in the future and couldn't help but look forward to it. Feng Yu suddenly thought of another beautiful, delicate, and almost flawless face. He felt a little sad. He said to Xia Yi, "It's late now. Let's meet tomorrow. I'm very busy these days. When I take you out, we'll have more time to spend together." All right. Xia Yi didn't think too much about it. In fact, she wanted to go out more. She had been trapped here for a long time. She wanted to wear beautiful clothes and eat delicious food. All her hopes were on Feng Yu. Chapter 730. After turning off the computer and pulling out the USB flash drive, Feng Yu did not go to bed immediately. Instead, he stood by the floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the street lights below, lost for a moment. He took out his mobile phone and clicked on the familiar live broadcast room. Amid the horrible background music, a very pleasant voice sounded. "Witch, run! The witch is coming." Tangwa's voice came from the mobile phone. "If you are caught by the witch, you will be thrown into a pot of oil to be cooked." Coupled with the horrible background music, her voice was a little more gloomy. The audience watching the live broadcast screamed and hid under the quilt, but could not help but peek. "Well, we have escaped the witch's pursuit and are finally going to the king's castle. It is an empty castle with a key hidden in it. As long as you get the key and open a door in the castle, You can lift the witch's curse and restore the whole country. Of course, if you fail, we will also be cursed and can only wait for the next generation to come and save us. Dear babies, there are 3 more roads. One is a bridge over the river, another is a cliff, and the last one is a road in the forest. There are terrible bones without flesh in the river. They will grab our legs and drag us into the river. The river will corrode our bodies and turn us into bones. The cliff is very narrow. If you are not careful, you will fall and break into pieces. The forest is very mysterious. No one knows what is in it, but it is said that no one who went in has ever come out. So, which road should we choose to go to the king's castle? Feng Yu listened to the deliberately gloomy and pleasant voice and looked at the display of the mobile phone interface. A little girl was standing at the intersection of the 3 roads and hesitating. Once she made the wrong choice, her game would be over. If she wanted to pass the game, she would have to start all over again. The game could be restarted. He frowned, but life could not be restarted. He held the mobile phone tightly, and 2 figures kept flashing in his mind. One was Xia Yi, who had been with him for 5 years, and the other was Tanghua, who had left a deep impression on him in just a few months. There was no doubt that Xiao Guo was a very good girl. If he knew her so well from the beginning, he might not have chosen her and would have chosen someone else. However, he had made so many preparations. Every time he saw little E, he could feel the anticipation in her eyes. Little E liked him so much and had been by his side for so long. If he were to say that he might not be able to do it now, little E would be very disappointed. He loved little E. Therefore, he could not disappoint her. Gu Nianxin stared at the screen. As for Xiao Guo, Gu Nianxin closed his eyes. He could only apologize to her for now. Xiaoyi had been in the virtual world for too long. Gu Nianxin wanted her to come out and see this beautiful world. As for Xiao Guo, he would wait for the right opportunity to bring her out in the future. Originally, he had planned to eliminate her brainwaves, but now he changed his mind. Perhaps he wanted to make it an accident for the exchange of brainwaves between the 2 of them and not make it man-made. His hands were trembling, and he pursed his lips tightly. He didn't want Xiao Guo to know that this was all a conspiracy. Even little E did not know about this. He was the only one who knew about it. Therefore, it was not a problem for him to keep it a secret. After thinking it through, Feng Yu let out a long sigh. At 12 o'clock, Tanghua's live stream ended, and he called Tanghua. Yu, you're still awake. Do you miss me? Yes. Feng Yu replied instinctively. Soon, he got over the strange feeling. The gaming cabin that I gave you last time should be available soon. Are you interested in being its first player? Chapter 731. Of course I'm interested. Yu, you're amazing. You're going to start a new era of gaming. Tanghua's generous praise did not make Feng Yu happy. He only felt that his heart was about to suffocate, and even breathing was a little difficult. Yu, I'm so happy for you. Your name will be recorded in gaming history soon. Thank you. It must be because he thought that Xiao Guo was a good girl that he had this feeling of hesitation in his heart. He touched the USB flash drive in his pocket, and the feeling of depression slowly disappeared. His expression also became firm, and a signature smile hung on his face. The gaming capsule should be available in a month. At that time, Xiao Guo will be the first tester. Really? That's great. I have to tell my fans this good news. They'll be very happy and bless me for finding such an excellent boyfriend. Feng Yu's inexplicable emotions came out again. Listening to Tanghua's proud words, he felt even more uncomfortable. He wanted to end this topic quickly. I think it's better to give Xiao Guo's fans a surprise. We'll try it out first, and when the effect is good, we'll broadcast it to them. This way, they won't be disappointed. Of course, I also have my own selfish motives. In this way, Xiao Guo can help us promote it. Although Xiao Guo is my girlfriend, you'll still be compensated. Then I won't be polite. It's my honor to be the spokesperson for the holographic gaming capsule. It's getting late. Feng Yu decided to take the initiative to end the topic. Wash up and go to bed. I'll tell you when there's news. I won't broadcast tomorrow. I'll take a day off. Yu, I'll bring you breakfast. Tanghua said quickly, not giving Feng Yu a chance to refute. It's decided. I'm hanging up. Feng Yu heard the beeping sound from the phone, and his expression was difficult to hide. That night, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. When he closed his eyes, his mind was filled with Tang Guo's smiling face. When he entered his dreams, he also dreamed of her smiling happily, the way she brought him food, and the way she proudly introduced him to her fans. He didn't fall asleep until it was almost 6 o'clock. At 7:30, his phone rang. He opened his eyes. Because he didn't have a good rest last night, he was a little tired. Feng Yu arrived at the Phone Corporation building. When he got out of the car, he saw Tang was standing at her usual spot. Her car was parked not far away. Every time she was free to bring him breakfast, she would stand at this spot. Although it's summer now, it's still a little cold in the morning. Feng Yu said with concern, "Xiao Guo is coming over in the morning. You can wait in the car or wait upstairs. This place is still the most eye-catching. I also want to see you at first glance, and I want you to see me at first glance." Feng Yu took a deep breath and took the insulated box from her. Tang Guo subconsciously held his arm and followed him in as usual. When he was eating breakfast, she wanted to make him coffee as usual. Breakfast was still delicious. What he didn't say was that when she didn't deliver breakfast, he tried to order takeout, but none of them tasted as good as her cooking. He also made coffee for himself, but he could never make coffee as fragrant as hers. Sometimes, she had something to do in the afternoon. When he was working, he couldn't help but look up and go to her usual spot. When he saw that no one was there, he would feel a little disappointed. He ate his food and chuckled. This damn habit was really scary. Chapter 732. In the following month, Feng Yu's life became even more enriching. Almost every morning this month, when he came to the Phone Corporation building, he could see Tang Guo carrying breakfast. He rejected her every time, but in reality, he did not notice that he was looking forward to her appearance every day. It was just that he was too obsessed with his goal and neglected this. After making coffee for him, she would go to the gym downstairs. 2 hours later, she would go to a beauty salon. After the beauty treatment, she would go home and make lunch. She would bring it to his office, and the two of them would eat together. In the afternoon, she would quietly accompany him at work. When she was sure that she would not disturb him, she would turn on her phone and broadcast his work life to her fans. Every time this happened, he could hear how happy she was. After work, they would go to the restaurant to eat together. Actually, what he wanted to say was that the food in the restaurant was not delicious. No matter how good the chef was, he would not be able to cook as delicious as her. Compared to high-end restaurants, he preferred the taste of her food. However, she seemed to like the atmosphere of the restaurant. She would sit opposite him and say, "This is what a boyfriend and girlfriend should do. Date. Understand? You date." Yes, this was what a boyfriend and girlfriend should do. Before getting close to her, he had done his research. On weekends, she would wake up very early and drive to his house. His servants were very familiar with her and would happily open the door for her. Every time he woke up, he could smell a familiar scent. Even if he did not wake up, that fragrance would float into his room, making him understand that she was here. His parents liked her very much. In front of his parents, Xiao Guo was the perfect daughter-in-law. She had a good background, good looks, good personality, good cooking, and was interested in games. Their family had a lot to talk about. With her around, their family would never fall into an awkward silence. She had won the favor of everyone. Even her colleagues in the company, some middle-aged and grumpy female colleagues, were all pleasant to her. It was as if she was born to be liked. She had a kind of charm that could not be disliked. On the weekends, after breakfast, she would drag him to the hairdresser's and talk to the hairdresser for a long time. Finally, she cut a very good hairstyle for him. Her aesthetic standards were undoubtedly very high. He was very satisfied with the new hairstyle. After that, she would drag him to the mall and buy him a few outfits. She would even say in disdain, "Video game designers are indeed similar to programmers. Although young Master Feng's taste is much better than that of programmers, in my eyes, it's not up to standard. From now on, I'll help you prepare what you wear every day." Feng Yu didn't know how to refute that. They were a couple, so they should indeed go shopping together. He looked at the clothes, tie, and watch in his hands and asked, "Where's Xiao Guo?" You should buy some too. He generously placed the card in her hand. Perhaps it was out of guilt. He clearly knew that she did not lack material things at all, not to mention her own family. Just by doing live broadcasts, she received tens of millions of gifts every day. However, he still placed the card with the most money in her hand and said, "I'll leave the card with Xiao Guo. I'll leave my life in your hands in the future." Okay. She smiled very happily and happily put the card into her bag. Chapter 733. I've made arrangements for your future, Tang was said with a smile. I've made arrangements for the rest of your life as well. System. I've woken up from my stupor. The gentle and beautiful dream that my dear host weaves is truly terrifying. This lasted for a month. The game that Feng Yu had prepared for Tanghua was already perfect. The Feng family had been researching holographic games for a long time. The one that Feng Yu had was not really a game. In fact, it was a program that could restrain one's brainwaves. Once a person entered the gaming pod and inserted their consciousness into it, the program inside would instantly control their brainwaves for about half an hour. Within this half an hour, Feng Yu had enough time to integrate Xia Yi's brainwaves into Tanghua's brain. Once he succeeded, the program would bring out Tanghua's brainwaves. Feng Yu held onto the other USB stick in his hand. The program was inside. He squeezed it hard before putting it into his pocket. Then, he connected the USB stick with Xia Yi's brainwaves to the computer. Xia Yi was very happy to see him. You, are you done? Soon. When Feng Yu saw Xia Yi's happy smile, he felt much less burdened. He touched Xia Yi's face through the screen. I'm going to help a friend test a game this afternoon. I'll bring you along. It's a holographic game. When we get the chance, I'll send you in to try it out. Really? It's a holographic game? Is it one of those legendary gaming cabins? Xia Yi had always loved games. When she heard that it was a holographic game, she was overjoyed. She had never thought that she would be able to witness the birth of a holographic game with her own eyes. Yes, it's the legendary game. She's a live streamer. Our company plans to let her do the initial publicity. Before that, we'll need to test it out. Xia Yi nodded hurriedly. If there were any problems with the live stream, it would have a negative impact on the Feng family. All right, I need to check if there are any problems with the game. I'll be there in a while. Little can stay in the USB stick for now. I'll bring you along with me in a while. Feng Yu would not put Xia Yi into a computer with an internet connection. He was afraid that her brainwaves would be lost in the internet world. It would be difficult for him to find her. This had happened before. Host, Feng Yu still wants to make a move on you, right? The system looked at Tanghua, who was shopping in high spirits, and couldn't help but ask, "You've been so good to him these past few months. Doesn't he feel anything? Why would he attack you?" Tanghua giggled. That's because you're too inexperienced. Most people have one thing in common. They're cheap. The system was speechless. It knew this word, but it had not heard it from its host for a long time. He felt a little regretful. Why didn't this world have such a mysterious transmigrator? Could it be that the other party didn't transmigrate? He was a little disappointed. If the other party had transmigrated, the host would have been happier. He had no doubt that Feng Yu was the transmigrator. If she was, the host would have told him immediately. If the other party dares to bully the host like this, it is guaranteed that the host will retaliate even more ruthlessly than now. What you don't have is always more important than what you have. What you lose is always more important than what you have. And the dead are always more important than the living. No matter how good the living were, they couldn't compare to the dead. Although Xia Yi is not dead, she only exists in Feng Yu's world as brainwaves. Chapter 734. Feng Yu prepared so much just to revive her. I've only been with him for a few months. No matter how good I am to him, I can't compare to Xia Yi. Of course, this is only on the surface. When he loses me and I'll never appear by his side again, he won't be able to revive me like he did Xia Yi. Only then will he understand how important I am to him. Tanghua picked out a tie excitedly. Her face was full of smiles. The saleswoman thought that she was happy. She was indeed happy. The system thought that it was the happiness of revenge. The system felt a little sad when it saw that the energy didn't increase at all. Happiness that didn't increase wasn't real happiness. There were too many things mixed in. Some he understood, some he didn't. I used a few months to weave an unforgettable memory for him. His life will be rich and colorful in the future. He won't be lonely at all. Tangwa asked the shop assistant to take down the neckties and shirts that she fancied. Then, she walked over to the accessories section. She bought everything that Feng Yu could buy from head to toe. Everything added up would last her for many years. Of course, the money for these things came from the card that Feng Yu gave her. Since Feng Yu gave it to her, she had to spend it. She ordered the people in the mall to send some of these things to Feng Yu's house and the rest to her house. After doing all this, she donated all the money in her bank card. Yes, she donated it. Not only that, she also called many orphanages directors and told them that she had a card that would automatically transfer a fixed amount of money to the orphanage's card every month. Tangwa went to the bank with a smile and settled this matter. The card was none other than the one that was bound to the live streaming platform. Then, except for her live streaming platform, she programmed a hidden password for all her social media accounts. Unless one's computer skills were better than hers, they couldn't be opened at all. When Xia Yi took over this body, she could only use her live streaming platform's account and live in her house. However, Xia Yi was just a high school student. When the utility bills for her house were due, she would definitely go to Feng Yu for help. In order not to be exposed, Xia Yi would never go to the family Tang couple. Of course, with her around, Feng Yu could forget about harming the family Tang couple. These few months were more than enough for her to make all these arrangements. As long as Feng Yu dared to show any signs of dealing with the family Tang couple, she would make sure that she would regret it for the rest of her life. System. It's almost done. However, based on her understanding of Feng Yu and the things she had done in the past few months, once she disappeared, even if Xia Yi was exposed, Feng Yu would not do anything to the family this time. This person always liked to love the house and its crow, especially when it came to the family of a person who had been lost forever. By the time he was done, it was already 3:00 in the afternoon. She and Feng Yu had agreed to meet at 5:00 in the afternoon. Remembering that Feng Yu's birthday was in a few days, she went to buy a high-end watch and went to a reputable high-end cake shop to order a cake for Feng Yu. "Miss, do you need to write?" "Of course." Tangwa smiled. She took a pen and wrote a sentence on a piece of white paper. "I like you more than I like games. Just add this sentence." The manager of the cake shop saw it and couldn't help but laugh. "Miss, your confession is really interesting. It's the first time I've seen it." "I think so too, because I used to treat games as my life." Chapter 735. The cake shop manager was stunned. The game was life. If he loved you more than the game, wouldn't it be more important than his life? She reacted quickly and said, "Miss, your boyfriend is so lucky. I will definitely follow your instructions and create a big surprise for your boyfriend." "Miss, is there anything else you need to prepare? Just give this watch to him. He will be very happy." Tangwa handed the watch to her. They would do a good job. After all, it was really expensive. The shop manager often received such tasks. She recognized the value of the watch when she saw the logo on the box. She couldn't help but be speechless. Indeed, she couldn't understand the world of the rich. It was just a watch, but it was almost 10 million yuan. She put it away carefully and watched Tangwa leave. After leaving the cake shop, Tangwa drove home. She changed out of her home clothes and took a shower. It wasn't even 5:00 when Feng Yu called her to say that he was at the door. Tangwa opened the door and looked at Feng Yu with smiling eyes. "Did you bring it?"
Yes.
It was Feng Yu's first time seeing Tangwa in home clothes. He thought that a beautiful woman like her would prefer sexy home clothes. He didn't expect her clothes to be so cute. It made him feel less uncomfortable. Soon, he came to his senses because he remembered what he had come here for. He was here to take over her body, which could be considered as taking her life. But why was she smiling so happily at him? If she knew that he was here to take her life, would she still be so happy? "Ayu, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and upload the game. I'm still waiting to try it. As the first person to experience it, I can't wait." Feng Yu pursed his lips. "No rush." His hand trembled as he held the USB. "I'm a little thirsty. What do you want to drink? Drink or tea?" Tea. Seeing her look at him in surprise, he quickly said, I haven't tried Xiaoguo's tea. I want to try it and see if it's as good as coffee. Okay, I'll make it for you. Feng Yu sat on the sofa with a heavy expression. He closed his eyes. It was a critical moment. He gripped the USB tightly. It took longer to make the tea than to get the drinks. The drinks should be in the fridge and would be delivered to him in less than a minute. He could finish the drink in about 2 minutes. After all, his excuse was that he was thirsty. There were many processes involved in making tea. Xiaoguo was a particular person, so she must have a complete set of tea sets here. He watched as Tangwa took out the tea set and thought that his guess was right. Seeing how smoothly she made tea, Xiaoguo's father must be a tea enthusiast. That tea set was not cheap. His father also had a set. He heard that there were less than 10 sets in the whole country. Ayu, the tea is ready. Feng Yu held the teacup. In fact, he did not like to drink tea. He took a sip and savored the fragrance in the tea. Just as he thought, it tasted better than coffee. Xiaoguo was really a perfect girl. Actually, tea doesn't quench my thirst. Tangwa held her cheeks and said, Drinks do? Xiaoguo's tea quenches my thirst better. Feng Yu said this subconsciously. It was completely different from what he had prepared in the past. However, he ignored it because of his nervous and conflicted heart. Half an hour later, Feng Yu had calmed down a lot. He touched the 2 USB sticks. He did not forget that one of them was Xia Yi. They went to Tangwa's game streaming room. Feng Yu silently started to install the game. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.